The main grammar point from this section is dative plural. The dative declension plural is just referring to something happening in a fixed location or in a fixed time. So it always refers to fixed position in time or space. It can be concrete or it can be abstract. And here we see an example of abstract because it's in other dimensions. Why manche Menschen und not manchen Menschen, right? So again, there's functions depending on the case. There's a case called nominative, there's a case called accusative, there's a case called dative, which we've seen today, and there's a case called genitive that probably you've seen before if you're learning German. So if you're simply naming something, you want to use nominative. So some people do this simple, right? You're naming who does what. So subject, verb, complement. So all subjects in German are going to be nominatives. Who does what? X ist Y. X is Y, so X is a nominative. And there's specific declensions. What is a declension? An ending. So there's specific endings or declensions for those words depending if they're masculine, if they're feminine, or if they're neutral. The second case is normally objects. So if you do something to something, that something is going to become an accusative direct object. If you have something, see something, hear something, or buy something, whatever that is receiving your action is going to be a direct object. So the rule is that all direct objects are going to take accusative case. And again, there's specific declensions, specific endings for all of them, depending if they're masculine, feminine, or neutral. And again, there's plenty of lists for that. It's just know the functions, right? Learn the functions here. And then we have the dative. Dative has more functions even. We have something called indirect object, which is the recipient of something. There's another function that depends on movement. If you're going somewhere and there's a direction, you want to use the accusative. If you're describing something in a fixed location in time or space, as we mentioned before, specific point in space or time, we want to use dative. Right? And most of the time you're going to say dative in abstract things. In my head, in the world, in the society, in this, in that. No? So whatever is contained within something and it's not moving is a static thing. It's going to take the declension of dative. So that's one function. We're going to see them alongside in the course. But here, for example, you can see things in other dimensions. So in anderen Dimensionen, what is important to remember about the dative plural is that you're going to have a double en. Andere Dimensionen. Andere Dimensionen sind spannender, are more exciting. I know other dimensions, for example, you could say ich kenne andere Dimensionen. And we keep the same, so why en here? Because it's a plural of die Dimension. Die Dimension, die Dimensionen. But if you're describing something that is fixed in time or place, again, you can say, for example, das sind, there are. Das sind seltsame Dinge, strange things in other dimensions. Das sind seltsame Dinge in anderen Dimensionen. The best way to learn all these declensions, like why, sometimes it's anderen, why, sometimes andere, why it remains the same sometimes in accusative, right? The best way to really learn this is, not mechanically through lists with examples with no connection whatsoever. The best way, and the one I recommend from lots of years of practice, is identify them yourself in text for natives, but not any natives. If you're just starting, use sites like this. Geolino oder helles Köpfchen, sogar WikiHow, why not? So I love the WikiHow texts because they always have a picture to them. It's very easy to guess what is going on. Most importantly, not only identify all the declensions that you can, try to see what is a subject, what is an object, right? Direct object. What is describing a specific point in time or place. So try to find the patterns yourself. And the cool thing is that the content is not graded, so they don't limit you to specific, grammar patterns or functions, but you see all at once. See language in action, see language as it really is. That's the most useful way to learn. If you do that kind of learning, it's much more important what you leave out, that one you keep. So you're gonna have to leave out many things. You don't need to translate everything, to know everything, to know even 50% of, no. As long as you identify, I don't know, 30 or 20% of the total amount of text, identify patterns, and notice how many you can actually make yourself. Now, try to identify what are subjects in there, what are verbs in there. That's a very, very good way to start. Even what are some adjectives and stuff. I mean, an adjective is going to be an adjective in every single language. The functions of the subjects are always going to be so if you identify those first, you're going to have solved a big part of the puzzle. So just rather than seeing new words each time, just know, for example, what are all the subjects in here. You can also practice with all the texts from this course in that sense. Identify all the subjects, identify all the verbs, and determine if the complement is a direct object or it's an adjective or, zum Beispiel hier, ich finde es. Ich finde es, what is that? Ich is the subject. Finde is the verb. It's an action. Es, what is es? In this case, it's a direct object. That's why it's going to be an accusative declension or ending. And lustig is an adjective. So that's another complement, right? Was gesagt hat. So Nebensatz is the complementary sentence. There's a main sentence and a side sentence. So that comes for later. But you know, this kind of thing you can definitely do in texts for native German children. Well, that's the main recommendation. If you want to master all those declensions, see them in as many examples as possible. Those you can easily guess. There's much more than you can easily guess in those sites that I just mentioned, as you can imagine. So again, don't keep in learning mode. You're going to become a user of the language. You're not going to remain a learner forever. So stop programming yourself to be a user and start noticing those easy patterns. Good luck with that, and see you in the next part.